considered, I think, are the resources. So we have unparalleled research budgets. I think that's important, especially as you get into the master's and the PhD level. Going where the resources are becomes increasingly important. US universities spent over $66 billion on research in 2015. A lot of the top universities have really large endowments. Like you have LPDP here in Indonesia, funding across, across all of Indonesia. A lot of the top universities have their own endowment funds. The top 10 all have endowments over $8 billion each. Harvard alone has one of over $36 billion. I mean, some serious money the universities themselves control in many cases to put toward research or whatever they want. It may be scholarships or other things. You'll also be able to work collaboratively with other departments and in many cases with other universities. $1 billion each. Harvard alone has one. Beverly touched a little bit on this, and she presented a slide that was showing research funding by agency. Research or whatever they I've got this slide going back further, not the last 5 years, but over the last 50 years, and doing it by theme. Departments and I think this is kind of cool. This is our non-defense research spending from the federal budget. It's just the government, a little bit on government funding here, and it shows a history of U.S. science in the last 2 generations. What were our priorities? I've got this slide going back. If you look at the yellow line back in the 1960s, the yellow, that's our space program. Not the last 5 years, but over the last 50 years. Competing with the Russians to get to the moon first. And I think this is kind of cool. This is our non-defense research spending. You go into the late 70s, and you see green start to get a little thicker. That's our energy program, right? And corresponding with like the Arab oil embargo, we start to invest more in energy research. And then more recently, as Bev mentioned, our health budgets have really skyrocketed. The prioritizing biomedical sciences, especially through the National Institutes of Health, has become our major research focus. And I want to reinforce part of what she said, which is when it comes to funding, when it comes to research in the United States, the government is not the major player. The private sector is the major player, both when it comes to performing research on the left, the blue, and actually funding it. Whose funding is shown on the right, who's performing it is shown on the left. You'll notice that the federal government contributed about a quarter of the funding for research last year, but only performed about 11% of it. And the biggest beneficiary of the difference of that gap was our university system. Again, that's the $66 billion we're talking about that the universities had to spend on research. So I want you thinking about these things as you're looking at your options of where do I want to go, where's a good fit for me. There's $66 billion being spent in our university system on research. That's a strong incentive. Like, you can get a part of that in many cases for your own research. The final thing I would just point out to you on this was that last year we spent $500 billion on research. That is a big chunk of money going into the sciences. So again, just as you won't see that figure anywhere in the world. That is a U.S. number. Go to the next. The final reason I wanted to mention is networking. I mean, the U.S. is home to 258 Nobel Prize winners. You're going to be able to plug into the most dynamic scientific community in the world and meet tomorrow's leaders in your field from around the world. That's an important thing to remember, is that you're going there to meet people from all over the world. You know, people from China, India, Africa are going to be your classmates along with Americans. And you're going to see, like, who are the leaders in geophysics or astronomy or whatever your particular background may be, and you're going to work with them for the next 40 years. So it's an exciting opportunity to network, not just with Americans, but with people from all over the place. We have 720,000 international students studying in the US. The largest number come from Asia. Of that figure, over 8,000 have come from, are currently in the United States from Indonesia. About 2/3 of those are at the undergraduate level. So we got a quiz for you. You go to next. Okay, so true or false? Public or state universities generally admit a wider range of students than private universities. Is that a true statement? I see a lot of head shaking. Yes, that is a true statement. Our public universities are an appendage of our state governments, and they service the whole society. So they often will have larger student bodies and more diverse student bodies than many private universities will have. You go next. True or false? Admissions decisions are often made only on the basis of grades and test scores. False, right? I think there is this perception, though, about standardized testing having an overweighted importance in applying to study in the United States, and it is important. I won't dispute that, but there's only one university that I know of that makes admissions decisions based solely on the basis of grades and test scores. I think that's Cal Poly. Any other? How are you going to add to the diversity of our student body? What are you going to teach your roommate on day one when you arrive on campus? What life experiences are you going to make or bring that are going to shape our academic community? And I think regardless of what your test scores are, all of you have something to contribute on that level for the universities in the US that you would be looking at. Go to next. True or false? If you have a good basic level of English proficiency and have met the minimum TOEFL requirements, schools will not require you to take special English courses. False. False. I'm a native English speaker and I took English classes in college, right? They will require you to take English classes. And in general, I think that's a very good thing. You're going to leave the university with excellent English, a command of the English language that's going to be helpful for you in academia or in private business for the rest of your career. So it is, we go to the next one. True or false? You can start study at any time throughout the academic year. False. This one's false. In the United States, we generally admit students one of either two times throughout the year. We call it the fall term, generally late August, early September, or the spring term, sometime January or possibly February. However, if you're seeking financial aid, you almost always have to start in the fall term, in August or September. And so you'd have to be thinking several months before that in terms of applying to get on board. So for the vast majority of students, you're going to be targeting those 2 months to start your academic term. So hopefully, we've given you a lot of reasons to consider studying in the United States. You're excited about it, and we want to also share some of the possibilities whereby you can fund your studies. A lot of those students in the U.S., I'm sure, are self-funded. Their parents or grandparents are paying for them to be there. But for a lot of students, that's not realistic. It's not a great option. We want to talk about some of the other options that are available. The first one is USAID's Prestasi program. So this provides advanced degree or, in many cases, short-term trainings for Indonesians. So since 2000, most prestigious scholarship program funded by the U.S. government. So now I'll hand it over to you.
Saya akan tutup. Can you all understand English? Atau bahasa Indonesia? Huh? English, okay. This is just a small intervention here because I represent Aminef, which runs the Fulbright program. How many of you have heard of Fulbright? 1, 2, 3? Okay. Fulbright, as Matt said, is the most prestigious program for educational exchange that the U.S. government offers. Aminef is a binational foundation, Dwi Bangsa, Indonesia dan Amerika Punya, which helps Indonesians to study in the U.S. or to do fellowships in the U.S. and also helps Americans who come here to teach at the high school or university level and to do research, either postgraduate research or students who are doing research on their own. So we are in the business of giving you opportunities, scholarships, beasiswa. Most of you are S1, and Matt, I think, is rightly encouraging you to think about going on for a master's degree, S2, or even PhD, S3. And America is a great place to do it, as he is pointing out. Fulbright is a great place to come if you are an excellent student, if you can demonstrate to us that you can, pass the basic English tests, and then there will be other tests that you have to take, but we will help you, and we will provide the funds for you to take the tests, and we will provide the funds for you to come to the interviews for the selection. It's competitive, but it will cover really most of what you need. We send, let's talk about MA, the S2. Can we, I don't know, are we on the right slide? Okay. We send every year about 50 Indonesians for S2 degrees to the US. You have to have a TOEFL of 550, and you should have a what is it, GPA, IPK? Yeah, of 3.0. You can be any age whatsoever. And we are very interested, and this is why we're here today, in the STEM fields, in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Although it's open to people from any field, we have special funds to encourage people who are working in the sciences to go to the US for an MA. There's also something called the Ristek Dikti funded master's degree, but actually I won't go into that here because I think most of you are students and you're not Indonesian lecturers. That program is for people who are currently lecturers at Indonesian universities. Okay, next slide. Doctoral degrees, S3, it requires a higher TOEFL when you're applying, 575, the same 3.0 IPK, and again, you can be whatever age. And here there are many opportunities for Indonesian lecturers, as I pointed out before, paid for by the Indonesian government to help Indonesian lecturers to get their S3 or PhD in the US. The grant, I think this is the next slide, covers tuition fee, can we have, yeah, thank you. Tuition fees, a monthly stipend, of course, round trip airfare, and domestic airfare during the selection process. Health insurance will help you get your visa, and we will apply to you, unlike the LPDP program where you have to apply to a US university and get a letter of admission first usually. We and our partner in the US, the Institute for International Education, IIE, will apply to 4 or 5 universities on your behalf, and we'll negotiate with them to get you the lowest tuition, in some cases tuition free, in many cases, and to find the right university for you, the right program for you. You can give your own preference, and everyone tends to mention the same universities, Harvard and MIT. But there are many, many other universities, and as Matt said, the state university system is excellent, and there are many terrific programs that state universities specialize in, especially for the sciences in various fields. And we encourage people in the STEM fields to look at, we provide opportunities, but we're also very concerned with what people come up with. So we specify that we're quite interested in people who are looking at questions of environmental conservation and biodiversity, alternative energy, and climate change issues. Of course, you can apply no matter what you're doing. If it's only, theoretical physics, that's okay too. But we are very interested in certain fields of the sciences as well. Okay, almost every U.S. university for graduate study will require you to take what's called the Graduate Record Exam, the GRE. It's a tough exam, I can tell you. And it certainly would be tough if I were not a native English speaker. So we help you prepare. We pay for your taking the exam because it can be expensive. Don't be frightened by it. It's something that everyone has to do, and you'll get through it. Basically, it tries to test aptitude, not knowledge. So if you've had a good basic training in your field and in the sciences, and there's also a verbal part as well. And because Gajah Mada is so famous, I'm sure you will all have had a very good basic education. You shouldn't find it too difficult. Anyway, we are in the business of helping people like yourselves to apply and succeed in getting to the U.S. and studying there. The network of alumni in Indonesia is now something like 3,000 people, plus about 1,200 Americans. So you will join a network, and in fact, while you are there, you'll also be in touch with many other Americans, with many other Fulbrighters from Indonesia and from other countries, and you are brought together regularly also to enrich your experience and to help make sure that you're doing well. So it's also quite different from LPTP in that way, because IIE and Fulbright are monitoring how you're doing, encouraging you, bringing you together, giving you funds to travel from one place to another, to come together in different places. So it really is a remarkable experience for those who have it. Okay, I think that's the end of my, that's the end of my intervention here, so I'll hand the mic back to Matt. Good luck.
Thanks, Alan. Both of my colleagues came more prepared than me. They have materials at their desk, and I'm going to come back up here. Can we go to the next slide? So just following on what Alan said, we want to encourage you to be confident. As you're approaching some of these things like the standardized tests, there is training available to help with these tests. People do pass them. People do get into the universities. And when we're looking at the landscape of students in Indonesia, UGM is certainly one of the elite institutions that is producing scholars that are going to the United States. So we definitely want to recruit here and encourage you to go through the process and apply. We also want to encourage you to look beyond the brand. As Alan said, it's not just a handful of 5 universities in the United States, and if you don't go to those, well, there's no value in the education. We have phenomenal universities in the United States across the board. And one of the important things that we would encourage you to look at is excellence in the particular faculty that you want to study. What is your field? Because you may find, if you're looking at water resource management, the University of Nebraska is an excellent college in that field. So can we go to the next slide? At a previous institution when I was giving this, they were concerned about oceanography and meteorology, and so I was just pulling up, well, what are the top schools in this field according to phds.org? And it's several schools from the University of California system, University of Maryland, Colorado State. I mean, these aren't Ivy League schools. But they're excellent in this particular field that a student might be interested in. And so where are the top professors? Who's getting the most research funding in this? The answer may surprise you as you really start to research in this. This is one example, but you could do this for any field. And that's exactly what we want to encourage you to do. There is one Ivy League institution on the top 10 here, and that's Princeton at number 10. But I think that's emblematic of the diversity of US education, and to really encourage you to focus in what is your unique story, what do you want to accomplish? Because there is a university out there that's a good fit for you. You go to the next? So plan ahead. This person obviously didn't. Next. Say thank you, and can we go to the next one? Next slide. As we open it up to question and answers, I just wanted to leave this slide up with some links. Feel free to take a picture of it if you'd like. It has links both to the Fulbright scholarship program that Alan was mentioning at AMINEF's website. But I also wanted to really highlight the top link here. If there's one thing that you take from my presentation, it's that I hope you go to educationusa.state.gov. We have Education USA centers across Indonesia. We have 2 in Jakarta. I don't believe we have one in Yogyakarta. But please go to the website, check it out. We have dedicated mentors at Education USA centers. You can reach them by phone, you can stop by in person, and they'll offer mentoring for you as you go through the process, how to apply to a US university, how to select a university that's a good fit for you or that accomplishes your goals. So lots of resources up here for you to consider, but please visit Education USA or come visit one of our centers around Indonesia to learn more. So with that, I think that concludes our formal remarks. I just want to open it up to anyone who may have questions for any of us. Yes, ma'am. Maybe I'll. Do you want to do the microphone here, Ita?
Thank you for the opportunity. It was all excellent presentation, and I believe that it would be very useful for all of us, especially the scholars here of Gadjah Mada University. And I bet like more than 50% of us attending this session are all interested in applying, and soon they're opening these websites that you recommend. But as a matter of fact, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lilis Susanti. Actually, I'm currently on my first year of the PhD program, but I'm not yet a PhD candidate because I'm not yet passed through the first semester even. So, but officially I'm from the Nuclear Energy Regulatory Agency, Bapeten, and we've got some cooperation also with the US Department of State and also the US Embassy. I've met Mr. Malloy for several times. And we have some comments on the presentation, and it is very interesting to find that you still have the time to share with us this information in person. We really appreciate it. But to be frankly, we also have, I'd like to introduce also a new program that we initiate from my institution and the Gadjah Mada University for having the PhD program in cyber security for nuclear security. And this is, in fact, the first year. But as a matter of fact, we also have some difficulties in having a look at some data collection, especially because it's quite a sensitive information. And of course, I would like to have comments from Ms. DeWalt regarding to that. If there is also a possibility that we can have another cooperation, or whether it can be formalized or a non-formal cooperation, that our department can also have a link to some sites that is related to nuclear security issues, because we understand also that some of them, most of them would be considered as classified. That's one thing, because we just needed to get, for the sake of science, technology, and innovation in that case, because we're still in our first years of having the program started. And the second point is that, of course, even though that we only started for the first year of our new program, from the point of view of my institution itself, that we wish in a short or long term that we will have an international program also held in Gajah Mada University for the specific program for cybersecurity, for nuclear security, because especially for the nuclear security itself, as it has been on a higher demand of attention in the world. And I don't know whether what kind of collaboration that you can think of in having it realized. And well, also the third one is almost related to the first question regarding the data collection on sensitive issues and also on classified documents. So what would be the policies for the science, technology, and innovations for this kind of matters in your case? Thank you very much.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? I don't, yeah, there it is. Thank you for your excellent questions, and congratulations to you on a successful career and an educational pursuit. That's very laudable. I don't know that I can answer your question directly, but I'll try and give you a little bit of information. First of all, looking at cyber and nuclear, we deal with them with very different, from a government perspective, from very different agencies. And cyber is dealt with from a variety of different agencies within the government. And it's one of the things that we're looking at how best to collaborate on it, because as you mentioned, both with cyber and nuclear, there are a lot of security concerns. That said, one of the things I'd like to highlight for everybody here, for all of your research, the US, and I know Indonesia has undertaken this as well, is to have an open government, open and transparent, and to put a lot of any federally funded research that is not classified, those results should be available online and open to the public. So I'm not sure what the data sets are that you need for the specific areas you're looking at, but if there is one that's available, and if it's not classified, it should be online, or if it's not already, it should be online soon. We're in the process of getting a lot of those things online. You mentioned the national lab. Maybe you didn't mention the national labs. So our national labs, yeah, I was going to say our national labs do a lot of the work on nuclear, and particular civilian nuclear as well, and that is an area that we do cooperate internationally. It's one of the areas my office is looking at increasing our international cooperation. So I will take this back as I speak with them over the next few months about how we can do that, and maybe I can get your contact information, and if there is something I find out, I'll gladly reach back out to you. And I think from there, I'd say the best thing you can do is stay in touch with the embassy as we continue to build our collaboration. And we meet right now every couple of years for the Joint Commission on Science, Technology, and Innovation. And based on what national priorities are for both Indonesia and for the United States, then we set our agenda of how we can cooperate and bring technical experts out to do that cooperation. So I think Matt is probably one of your best researchers for that, and I'll turn the time over to him.
So, hello, Lilies. Good to see you again. So for those of you who don't know, Bapeten is the nuclear regulatory agency here in Indonesia. Your question, I'm happy you're here. You're actually one of the people I was going to reach out to tomorrow when I'm back in Jakarta to discuss the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Bapeten MOU, that I understand there's like some pending language. You're our point person on that. So this is one of our follow-up items, and perhaps NRC is another avenue that we can pursue for like best practices. They may have greater insight in terms of what data sets are publicly available and how to access them. So I'm happy to work with you to follow up on pursuing that when we're back in Jakarta. Are you here permanently? Are you back at UGM now? Or? You just came out for the day? Wow. Well, thanks for making the trip. Okay. Other questions? They don't have to be nuclear related. Does anyone have questions for Pa Alan related to the Fulbright program or the resources that Fulbright has available for Indonesian students?
I have here brochures that you're welcome to that explain the scholarship degree programs as well as the non-degree programs. So feel free to pick these up as you like.
Okay. I think maybe that's...
Actually, I will be asking for non-nuclear related matters. I think this is the question that most of the participants here have in their mind. Some of the presentation you gave out about the Fulbrights, the MENF, and the USAID, yeah, we're quite familiar with it. And I had it always on my mind to apply for the Fulbright, but then something else came up on my life, so that was delayed until now, and then I came here. But I believe some of us have still it in their mind. Regarding the Fulbright especially, I don't know whether you have specific areas that you wish to cover. Like back in several years ago, I saw the brochures of Fulbright, and you only provided the funding for those taking the humanitarian programs, but not covering the science and technology or engineering program. I forgot in what years that brochure was produced, but yeah, when I saw that, oh, too bad that this is not the thing for us. That's what I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but I saw that in a certain year, I saw that was listed on the Fulbright brochures. So I don't know whether you still have that preferences, whether those scholars taking the Fulbright should take the non-exact departments compared to having the science, engineering, and etc. Thank you.
If I can answer your question, I think from the year about 2010, when President Obama and SPA signed the Higher Education Partnership, there was very specifically a focus on helping Indonesia develop STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, on both exchanges of Indonesians to the US and Americans to Indonesia. So at least for the past 5 or 6 years, it's been encouraged. I think in the past it was open to all fields, but historically I think you're right, that mostly it's humanities and social sciences among the alumni. But certainly now it's open, and there are specific funds. The Fulbright Indonesia Research in Science and Technology, or FIRST funds, are there exactly for you guys. So please apply. Yeah.
There other questions? If not, maybe would it be possible to take a photo with everyone before we wrap up this session and before you take these materials Alan brought? Could we maybe have everyone come up to the front and take a group photo? All right.
So please, for who are left of the participant, come to the front.